In 2014, the Scottish people had a chance for independence and they voted to stay in the Union. But of course, the people that want independence are still talking about this once in a lifetime or once in a generation vote, and they want another run at it. So, what should be the conditions for when a new Scottish referendum should take place? Well, here's a decent debate on it. A couple of minutes long from Holyrood sources, but I think this really gets into the nuts and bolts of why the Scottish people don't deserve another referendum just yet.
If these ideas are good, can we take them on and stop arguing about ideologies and work out how we make Scotland more prosperous? That's the only thing that matters to me. What was that guy? Was it Harry Truman that said, it's amazing. You can change the world if you don't mind who takes the credit, right? Yeah. If these are good ideas, can we just get on with them and can we gather around them and can we make Holyrood a place of intelligent conversation, of challenging thought, of curiosity, of mind, where everyone's not thinking the same? Is it what it said? When everyone's thinking the same, no one's thinking, right? Can we please have Holyrood become almost like a laboratory of ideas, of innovation? Let's try it. Oh, it didn't work. Well, let's try something else, see if that works. To me, that is what Holyrood should. Holyrood's got all the power at the moment to do that, but instead is obsessed with this continual wrangle about the Constitution. And it's obsessed with this continual ideology. The only way to sort something out is for the state to spend money.
But let me come in on the Constitution point, because this frustrates me somewhat as well, because the SNP get labelled of obsessing over independence. Well, who knew? That was what the Scottish National Party believe in. But fundamentally, for that conversation just to stop, that discussion, that back and forth, there needs to be an agreed process. There needs to be an agreed process from the UK government that says, if this metric is met, we will have a referendum. And then that allows the space for the conversations that you want to have take place in earnest.
Well, I would say to that Alex Salmond got his referendum because he earned the right to get one, right? He won a majority in Holyrood and he ran a good administration on the whole. And he was able to demonstrate that he was able to create, that there was growth. I mean, if you look at the growth rate of Scotland under his administration, it was a higher growth rate, right? And it was an 84% turnout, Jeff. I mean, that is the highest turnout. I mean, people around the world were studying this in political science all over the world. This was the highest turnout of any vote except Australia, where it's compulsory to vote. So the Scots were engaged in this conversation. 3.6 million of them voted, 2 million to stay, 1.6 million to remain. That is a decisive result, and Salmond knew it, and that's why he made his comment about that's for a generation, right? Now, if I had been Alex Salmond and I'd got the vote from 30 to 45%, I would have been entitled, I think, to say I'm handing over to Sturgeon. She can get it from 45 to 60%, right? And you're part of that journey. But that hasn't happened, and that hasn't happened because we've had a government which has not been interested in growth, and we've had a welfare economy with flatlined. And guess what? The polls are flatlined. So therefore, it's not. You can't have the conversation because you haven't earned the right, So my view would be earn the right to do it.
It's very hard to come up with an alternative argument to what we've just heard there from Malcolm. And listening to the other gentleman who was in the top left there come up with his rationale for why there should be a referendum, that also sounded fair enough. But it needs to be borne in mind that Scotland did have an opportunity in 2014 and the Scottish people decided en masse that they didn't want to run their own country and they would prefer to stay part of the Union. And that's fair enough. For me, one of the things that I often think is I do resent the fact that Scotland and Wales receive a higher percentage of our taxes than England. So when you look at the per capita per head, Scotland and Wales, in fact, receive more money than the people of England do, and this has been known for quite a while. And the other thing that also annoys me is the Scottish parliamentarians in Parliament continually whining. You've got the likes of Pete Wishart, who all he does all day on social media is whinge and moan about all the things on the right. He moans about reform, he moans about Elon Musk, he moans about this, moans about that. And I think in many respects, well, Pete, why don't you just piss off back to Scotland and just look after your own country? But the thing about it is, the Scottish people don't want that to happen. They had their opportunity to leave and they voted to stay in, and yet still you've got these Scottish MPs moaning and whining almost continually, and they do have a vote in the British Parliament. But for me, as an Englishman, I would be quite happy to have England sectioned off from both Scotland and Wales and have our taxes used. I would also like, the John Swinney from Scotland to stop moaning all the time about immigration into Scotland and take a few for yourself, mate. Have a few, it can be your country and you can take the ball and run with it. But as for the referendum, I thought Malcolm's argument there against a referendum right now was sound, but for me, I would be quite happy for the Scottish people to run their own country. I think Scotland is a great country. I've stayed in Scotland. I've worked up there, particularly in lovely parts of Scotland like the Isle of Mull. I was lucky enough to go and work up there for a time. And I've been around Scotland generally, particularly in the southwest. I think is a lovely part of Britain generally. And I love various places in Scotland. It's very picturesque and you have a good set of lands up there, a good country up there. But it was clear that Scotland didn't want to run its own country back then, and I'm not sure whether that's changed at the moment, but I do think Scotland needs to earn the right for a referendum on the one hand, but I could be easily persuaded, in fact I would be happy if push comes to shove, for Scotland to have another referendum tomorrow, if that's what you want, and good riddance to my taxes flowing up into Scotland to be wasted by the SNP. I'd be all for that, but as to whether the actual Scottish people want a referendum, I'm not sure about that. I don't know whether they want that to happen, but for me, as an Englishman, I would be quite happy to partition England off and let's get rid of this union and let's move forward into the 21st century and let's all pay taxes for each other. Thanks very much for your time.